So three clusters we are going to work within this demo. Are one is GKE1, GKE private here. Another one is Azure cluster AKS1, and the final one is the AWS cluster EKS1. Right? Now, if you look at this output for the namespaces on all these three clusters, you can see that Anthos config management is already deployed on Google, right? GKE1, but it is not deployed on either EKS or on AKS, right? That's what we are going to do next. We'll deploy config management agent on EKS1 as well as EKS1. Now, another thing you can note is that monitor namespace. This is the namespace which is already configured on to config management system, right? So as soon as I create an agent on EKS or EKS, this monitor namespace will also be created on these two clusters, right? So let's go ahead and onboard those two clusters. So this is a small utility I've written just to ensure that it is easy to demo Anthos capability. So first we'll onboard EKS cluster onto the config management. Now what this tool is going to do is it's going to deploy config management agent on the cluster and also attach this particular repo which Anthos is going to work with the cluster. Right. So configure. Right. This is done, and I'll do the same for AKS as well. Right. So this is deployed on both AKS and EKS. Now this takes about 2 to 3 minutes to stabilize. So I'll pause the video and then I'll come back again. So we can see that the monitor namespace as well as the config management system agent is deployed on Azure. This is Azure cluster. And if you look for EKS, we can see that config management system agent is deployed on EKS, and as well as the monitor namespace has been created. Right. So now what we can do is we can try to create a new namespace and a new deployment uh, on into the Anthos repository, uh, and then see whether this actually goes ahead and gets deployed on all those three clusters. Right. So it is very easy. We go ahead and we create a new namespace. Let's call it tools, and then just submit that. So now the tools namespace is created, and what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a deployment also in this. Let's call it some tool. Specify. Now this is any dummy deployment I'm creating, so any image will do. Right. So yeah, this combination, I mean, you should just see that some tool gets deployed. Anything you can deploy, and we have to deploy this in tools. Right. So we are deploying this in the tools. So now we can see that we have another namespace and there is a deployment within this namespace. Now if we commit this, we should be able to see these two new objects onto all those three clusters. So this is now normally very quick, but should take about 15-20 seconds. Right, so we can see that the tools namespace has been created on EKS, and if I go and first check on EKS, right, we see the tools namespace there, and if we check for the pods, right, so that's created on EKS, and if we check for, let's say, GK1, right. So this is how easy it is to configure multiple clusters using Anthos config management. Next, we'll see how we can be very selective with our deployments as well, right? In this one, we saw that one configuration gets deployed to all the attached clusters. But what if we want to be very selective with the deployments, right? For example, I may want to deploy on GKE and AKS, but not on EKS. So how do we do that? Watch that in the next video.